links off each side. I'll try and spin the whole thing around so I can get to it. Just got to turn this around a little bit. Pop that off, and I'm going to take the head off and put my swash leveling tool on, and then we'll be ready. So I'm just going to remove the head, so undo the 2 screws on the head retainer. Put it aside and then slide your head off. Okay, hey guys, Westy here. Okay, what I'm going to be doing today is I'm working on my Goblin 630 and I'm doing some advanced kind of setup on my Ikon FBL controller. Now, I've had heaps and heaps and heaps of problems with the self-leveling system on this setup. Some of you may or may have not seen my first video of when I set the Ikon up originally and self-level hit it and boom, straight into the house, tore a big hole in it. Anyway, so what you do, and what I've been experimenting with it a bit, and I've got to flight test it yet, but anyway, we'll go through the basics and then the advanced stuff. Now, I am using a Bluetooth adapter. The Bluetooth adapter, I've actually built one, which I've got a video on in my playlist, which are in there somewhere, and I'm using the app. I think it's $8.30 or $9 or $8.40 or something. It's the Brain app, and that's that will connect you via Bluetooth, so you can do, like, the good thing about it is you can do in like on flight, well, not during flight, but field adjustments, so you can do tweaks without having to actually physically connect your laptop up to it. So it's a great little setup. So first things first, and we'll move over to the Heli. Okay, so I've got my I've actually bubble leveled it. See, this bench, you can't go off your bench because my bench is not level, so you've got to go off the Heli itself. So I've actually put my bubble level on top of the main shaft, and that way, and so that way to actually get the level of the helicopter that way, and this way to get the level of the helicopter coming across this way. And then I double checked it against my Align blade pitch gauge, which is basically an electronic level. So yeah, so basically I've got a little chock here and a little chock there to brace the chassis up, set your level on the main shaft itself, not on the motor, because the main shaft is what you want. The motor is actually a little bit off, and then just eyeball it, make sure it's square and level. And same with the other way. Like so. And then once you've got that, you can compare that with your digital setup. So basically put it on one way and then zero it. So hit your zero, and you have to muck around a couple of times to get it right. And then as you can see, it's pretty sensitive to me moving it. So when it sits at zero, it's pretty good, and then flick it around the other way, 90 degrees over the center. And it's flicking between 0 and 0.1. Okay, so that's pretty much perfect. Okay, now, so we power this down. Don't lean on your bench or anything when you're doing your adjustments, because you'll end up upsetting the Ikon. I've done the Milton mod, which I've just got to basically take. The only thing I have to do is take this little zip tie off and actually put a bit of fuel, neoprene fuel tube. I'm actually going to cut a bit of the neoprene strip that I've got left here and use that on each side of the, just on the corners where it actually touches. So that should absorb that sort of load coming through, anything coming through this plate, vibrating through, it'll actually, because it's actually got a little bit of, quite a bit of freedom in there to move, which is great. Okay, so I'm going to clamp on to the camera tripod and we'll get into it. Now I've done a lot of experimenting with this now, well actually for the last hour or so. I've done a lot of reading, had a lot of dramas, bit of blood, sweat and tears. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to move these out of the way so that you can, so they're not interfering, and I'm going to actually put my phone in view and hopefully we'll be able to zoom in and out of that. So first things first is I've got my radio down here underneath the deck, so just on a little stool. So turn that on, make sure you're in the goblin mode. I'm taking for granted that you've done all the basic setups and we're just working on the self-leveling feature itself. Okay, so I'm just going to give you the rundown of it while we do it. So power up your transmitter, power up your Ikon. I don't have my motor and I've got a separate battery reducer, voltage reducer running this Ikon itself. And okay, that's synchronized and settled itself in. It's got one flash flashing on the Ikon, which means it's in mode 1, because there's 3 different stage modes on the self-leveling stuff if you want to use self-leveling. So that's all centralized now, so I don't need to have batteries for my motor or disconnect it. But if you've got a single system that runs the ESC and the controller and the motor at once, make sure you disconnect 2 of your wires on your motor. Otherwise you're going to end up spooling up. Okay, so bearing in mind that I've got my little Bluetooth adapter here, tucked in here. And go to my brain icon. And I'm going to try and find a Bluetooth connector for this. So I'll turn my Wi-Fi off and I'll go into Bluetooth and scan. And now there's my HBO one. So I'll try and connect to that. And I'll try 0000. See if that works. And it didn't like that, so we'll try again. Try and pair it up. I'll try 1, 2, 3, 4. Go back into the brain software and connect into this, and there you go, the light's gone solid. And now I'm in the device setup for the brain on my tablet, so I'll just turn it around. Doesn't work that way. Okay, so then you can scroll across, and what I want to do is actually set the self-leveling side of it. So I'll set this up like click in here, and my unit is set up, it's at the top and at the front. The wires are at the front in relation to the Heli. And I'm going to set that, and I'm going to set level. Before I do that though, I'm going to chuck my swash on, my Swash Tool. I'll just get that on there. Okay, and now that's set at the correct, it's got top up wires front, and I'm going to set level. Okay, now so I'm going to use 700, and for so you can use whatever size heli you're using. So here's the flying style setup. So it's got three setups. It's got default, which is what it's on now. Basically, one is one flash, two is two flashes on the red, and three, as you can see, the green one's active in sync with the one, and then three is your third version. So you might want to do, anyway, I only use 1 and 3. I'll set my transmitter up for that. That's in another video again. We won't go into that. This is completely about setting the self-leveling. Okay, so first things first is get your main shaft or your swash leveler and sit it on there. And as you can see, in mode 1 I've got no auto leveling at all. And eye up your swash servos and make sure your swash is sitting perfect on, because you should have done that when you did your setup, and that's brilliant, that's perfect, that's great. Okay, so now what we want to do is we want to activate auto level, but before that take your swash leveler and turn it around so that it's not going to bind, because if it's off it will bind, and don't believe me, I know, because it's happened to me a few times. So now we want to basically go, yeah, I want to do auto leveling, but it's not in that mode. So I've got a switch set up on my transmitter down here, and I'm going to flick that in now, and that's put it into, it takes a little bit to come through, but you can see the 3 flashes on the icon. 1, 2, 3. That's gone into setup 3, even though it's not showing up on this tablet. And when I look at this here, I've got both these 2 servos here are way down, about that far, and this one here is sitting on it. So you can't actually do any adjustments in this section here, so I press my more button down here and then go to advanced. It takes a couple of seconds to come in, and what I'm going to do is you click on common. If you've been mucking around with this, you can actually copy the default setup back over to any of the ones that you've been mucking around with, which is quite easy. We'll do that. I'll do that now for you, just so you can see. So if you've been playing with it and you're having all sorts of troubles, go default setup 1 and then go options, and it'll give you the option to copy the setup to whatever. So if we've been mucking around with setup 3 and we can't remember where it was, you press copy and then OK, and that's brought setup 3. If we have a look at the go back, the other back, go govern stab for stability. As you can see, in mode 1 I've got 0 maximum angle degree, and I've got no auto level or anything selected, and level 3 into govern stab, and the same, it's exactly the same. So you've got, so these 2 here. Okay, so we'll go back, actually we'll go into advanced, because I want to actually set this back up, simple, basic, so I want to get this back into normal, and see how it's still sitting on level 3. I'll just move my cyclic plate so it's off, the servos because it will bind up. And I'm going to set this up for hardcore 3D and then use auto level. And now I've done that, because it's in level 3 mode, when I look at it, these two front servos are down, and so there's a gap, so it's not level. The swash is no longer level. So to actually trim that, you go into advanced, and then you play with these aileron and elevator angle for hover. So I've actually had to play with the settings. So what you do is basically, because we've got the two at the front down missing, you need to basically drop this down, the elevator down. So we're going to drop the elevator down to 3.3 on this. In this case, you have to play with it. So if it was me doing it from nothing, I'd go to 2.5 and see what happens. But make sure before you hit OK, you take your swash level off the servo's heads, and then so that's adjusted that. So you give your so that's at 3.3, and then I'll check this again, and that's still out on the on the aileron side. So we'll change the aileron. And all my playing was I changed it from 3 to 2.7. And then I'll take the swash back off the thing again and then go OK. And that makes the adjustment, so 2.7 and 3.3. Put your swash leveler back on, and that's now perfect. So that's actually perfectly sitting on my 3 servos on the swash itself. So we'll leave that there, and now to set that and make it stick, we'll put this back up over here so it doesn't bind, and we'll switch it out on your transmitter back into mode 1, which I've got set up on that switch. And as you can see, it's got one flash now. Now what that does, that makes it stick, save basically on the icon itself, because it's moved out of mode. So we'll go back into simple, basic, sorry. As you can see, no, the first one's highlighted, so that's running, so that's no auto level. Okay, and so I've got auto level set up on this. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to flick my transmitter back into mode, into the third mode. So I've just got it set up on this switch. You can set up whatever switch you like, and that's changed it over, and it's now lit up the third one down here, you can see. So put your servo swash back on, and then it's level, right? Perfect. So take it off again, and now we're going to power down. Okay, so what we do first is we're going to kill the software first and log out of the Ikon software. To do that with this, you have to actually turn your Bluetooth off. So I'm going to hit my Bluetooth here and turn it off. Okay, so that's clear, that's stopped interfering now. I'm going to switch back out into normal flight 1, basic 1 mode. It's back in 1, and I'm going to power down the RX and then turn my transmitter off. Okay, so we'll take your swash lever off, turn your transmitter back on again, see if your settings have stuck. Okay, it's powered up. Now turn on your receiver. Okay, now we've got one flash, so we're in mode 1. Check your level. As you remember, it's set up for no auto leveling on that one, and that's fine. Okay, now switch it across. Switch your switch in for whatever to change your mode, and that's changed it into mode 3. And that's perfect. It's actually perfect, perfect, perfect. Now if you do have a problem with it actually, like, and it's not quite right, basically give your swash a bit of a play and let it get back to normal. and put your leveler back on, and then switch it across. So now it's gone into mode 3, and that's perfect. Okay, so that's basically how you get the settings to stick. So we've done our trimming. So all I'm going to do now, because I was just doing this for demonstration, I needed to do this anyway, I'm going to cut this tie off, and I'm going to put a bit of my silicone pad that I've got left over from my Milton mod, which is a silicone pad underneath here, and then strap it on with this. I'm going to cut that off and then put this on each edge and then put it back on again. Actually, I'll probably cut a longer one so it goes right across, just a small strip. Okay, so that's pretty much ready for testing and see how it goes in flight. So we'll basically put the head back on and I'll give it a spin up and we'll see how we go. Okay, thanks for watching, guys.